uh, in the video this time today, I'm going to be coding the beginning of Java, the beginning of concurrency, that is thread. I will be doing a good amount of code work on Java thread, and also provide you with proper exposure of all the methods and that comes in Java thread class and Java instance. The threads are created inside a process, and process is an instance of an application. Like for example, if you see on the screen, this OBS that I am using to stream my videos is an application, and you can see that there are different although it is recording my screen, there are different actions that I can do on this application. It is also like over here it is updating the amount of time that this recording has been going, the CPU that is the percentage CPU that is occupied or getting used right now. So this is a process. OBS is a process, and all of these small things that is getting done inside the OBS can be done by using multiple threads to prevent so that multiple different threads can do different things, and we can have our application recording my screen as well as an application updating the time over here of the entire recording duration. Sorry, time is not visible. Now it is visible. This is time that is getting updated every second. So when I say every second, that means it is updated 60 frames per second, 60 times in a second. Sorry, no, it's one frame per second. 1 frame per second, sorry, because it is getting updated every second, so it is 1 frame per second. Okay, so where to begin? So thread is a path of code execution inside an application, and it shares the main memory with this application. The operating system allotted a certain amount of memory to this OBS application, and these threads share that memory inside this application, but they are executing different paths of code or same code from different directions. So the thread class lies inside the Java .lang package, and this Java.lang package is imported implicitly. That means that we do not need to declare import Java.lang and its classes. So it is the thread class is always there for us, there with us. So I'm going to start coding. First I will create a thread test class. I will be using this class to test all the thread classes that I am going to extend and create later. So public static you can put these threads right after the string keyword or separate it with the string keyword. It won't make any difference. Like I said, thread class is present in Java.lang package, and that is because of that the thread class is always accessible to us. So when I run this application, Let me run it. This is Java scripting. We don't need to compile and run. You can directly run a Java file. So when I ran this application, Java application ran this command. A Java application was created, and in that Java application, a main thread was created, and that thread executed these instructions. So let us get some information about that thread, and we can use that. We can go to the static methods like this is the static method that returns the current thread object to us. We can use this current thread method, static method, to get the thread object. Then we can call the instance methods on that object. So now we have got a reference to our main thread that executes this main function, and we have. So for now I'm going to concentrate on this method, current thread method, and we can use print line to print the toString, to call the toString method of this thread class and get the information about it. Okay, my mistake. The problem is that this is a main thread is an object. I'm calling a function on it. So you can see after our first string was printed using the print line method, now we have printed the information about this main thread. Is a thread class. Main thread is this is the name of the group in which this thread belongs. This is the priority of this thread. This is the name of this thread. So I can use this main thread object to access the instance, the member variables of this thread, and get the information that we want, like thread group that it belongs to. So you can see now we have the name of the group that this thread belongs to is main, that was printed over here, and we can also get the different information about the group that this thread belongs to. So this is how we can access the current thread that is executing right now, the thread of execution, that is main thread of execution. We can use the thread dot current thread to access the main the reference to the thread of execution that is running this code right now. We can also access the group of that thread and other informations. Going to the static method, there is one method sleep. That is what is does, that is this in a way we can say this freezes the thread for that amount of time. It takes milliseconds, it also takes nanosecond, and it depends on your idea of accuracy, which one you want to use. So I can put (1,000 milliseconds). That means 1 second. And if this method throws the interrupted exception, we'll have to either use the try catch to catch it over here. We can mention that this main function throws this exception. You will see that there is going to be delay of 1 second between print of this line and print of this line. Wait, now you saw that there was a delay of a given time before these two print statements were executed. This is the static method that is used to check that current thread has been interrupted or not, and this is a yield method that is used to tell the processor that I wanted to do something useful, but the resources that was needed for that work is not available right now. So if you can find a different thread which needs the execution time, then you can put me outside the processing unit and pull that thread to use the resources to execute. So it is voluntary asking scheduler to do that for you, that because you are not able to do anything meaningful. So moving next to that, how we are going to create our own thread. The path of execution. In this video we are going to talk about creating a thread by extending a thread class, and why we should and when we should extend a thread class, and when we should use runnable or callable. I will be explaining that in this video. This is perfectly valid implementation that we don't need to do anything else, just extend the thread and your work is done. I'm going to remove all of this. is equal to my right. Compiler has added no argument constructor for us, so we can call this no argument constructor without any issue. To start a thread, we call the start instance method. I'm going to compile all the Java classes. Sorry. RED thread. Compilation done. Now I am going to run my thread test class because it has the main function, and it is where we are creating the new object of our thread class, not JVM Java thread class. So you saw we compiled the code, we ran the main class, but nothing happened. Why? So point is, now you know that we use the start function to start a thread. You can see over here, causes this thread to begin execution, and inside thread class, inside the start function in the thread class, it calls the run function. So to do anything useful, we will have to override the run function and write our work that needs to be done over here. In run method of thread class, and okay, compile it, run it. Now you saw that we get this printed statement like that we wrote in the run method, of my thread class. So now you saw that we need to call the start function to start a execution of a thread, and that thread should override the run method to do anything, to do whatever work we want that thread to do. That should be should be put inside this run method. So these two concepts are clear. So let me show you one more thing. I can directly call this run method by using this object. So what is the difference between this and this? I am going to get the same output. Both the methods execution printed did the same work in run method of my thread class, in run method of my thread class. So what is the difference? Let me show you. Current thread that is, now I'm going to write the thread that is executing this print statement is access the current thread of the execution and print it. To keep things simple and clear, I'm going to delete this. Done. The only one class that I think I modified only the my thread.java, so I'm going to compile only that. And going to run the thread test. See, the thread that is executing this print statement is the main thread. The thread that is executing this print statement is thread 0. So so this statement is coming from here. When we call the run method directly by using the object, this is the main thread that is doing the execution of this statement. When we use thread start function to run the starting a thread, this is a different thread of execution that is executing this print statement. To make it more clear, I think so this time I have only modified the my thread test class, so I'm going to compile only that class. So here it is more clear that now you can see that the once it was executed by the thread that was created by that was explicitly created by us, that is our my thread 1. You can see here this is my thread 1, and the other and then the next time when we call the run method directly from this main function using the object instance, it is executed by main thread that is running the whole application. So you can see the difference. You can also notice one thing here: the order of execution is different. In this time of execution, the main thread ran the this print statement first, followed by the thread that we created. But this time the thread that we created ran first and main followed it. Let us run it again and see that what happens. You saw this five times when we executed this statement. The thread that we created executed that print statement in the run method first, but during the sixth time it was the main thread that executed that statement first. So see here this issue of concurrency arises when different threads are executing same block of code. What we want that if we created this thread first, then this should be able to execute this statement first, followed by this statement, but that doesn't happen. This is why we need synchronization, another way to control this flow. Let us see some more instance methods. Sorry, I forgot to keep my mobile on mute. Yeah, this I was looking for this. What this join method does, that if I put it over here, what this says, that main thread wants this thread, the thread that we created to complete its operation first. After once it is done, it will start its own process or its own execution. So if I run this now, compile, run. I think this time, as we have put a condition that this statement will only finish when our thread does the operation or our thread gets terminated. So I guess it is a correct guess that every time we execute, the thread that we created is going to run first, right? So basically we are telling main to wait for that thread. What happens if we call this function on our main thread? Get rid of this. Thread dot current thread, that is our main thread, dot join. I will say 2 seconds. After 2 seconds, wait for. What we are doing over here, that we are telling main to wait for itself, wait for its own termination for 2 seconds. If we don't put 2 seconds over here, it will keep waiting forever for its own termination. So this is something like I will start working when I die, after I am dead. So this is more like a catch 22 scenario. If I am dead, I won't be able to work, but I can only work when I am dead. So compile this. Wait and keep waiting. It is never going to run out because we haven't provided any timeout. So we are going to end this and provide 2 second time. Compile and run. Wait. Now you saw it waited, the main thread waited for 2 seconds to get terminated on itself. This is what join method does. If we call join method does that, if we call it on a thread object, then the execution of current thread will stop at that point, and it won't move forward until that thread dies. So this is one way, and let us move to some different function. Let us see what this function does. I haven't used it much. It does. So this is the state that was printed by this function, that our main thread is in runnable state. So you saw before we called the start function, the my thread was in a new state. When we call the start, after calling the start function, it went to runnable stage, and we can and okay, one more, my thread dot join. Now we are going to see a different, now we are going to see a third state, that is, I think, terminated state. Run again. Now you saw that new runnable, and after join is over, it goes into terminated state. So this is, we can keep track of the current state of our thread, and we can get the priority, we can get the name of that thread. And anything, we can get the priority of the of our thread. Is daemon is to see that the current thread that is running is a daemon thread or not. This is a function to see that our thread is alive or not. This prints the entire stack trace of our current thread. So suppose you are creating an application and you want something like thread dump of your thread if some exception happens. Dump stack. You can use this method. So this is our stack trace of our thread, my thread 1. Similarly, we can call this function of the on the main thread, and we'll get a similar result. So on spin wait is a new method that was introduced in Java 9. For example, earlier we used to code something like that: while stack is empty, or why something is true, keep checking for this particular condition is true or not. Why stack is empty? If a stack is empty, then keep looping or keep running. So it was a kind of busy wait that our thread was not doing anything useful, but it was consuming processor time and resources, and in a case that could be used by some other process. So because of that, they have introduced something called on spin wait. This is to signal the processor that I am on a spin wait. You can take advantage of this condition and do something useful. So this is a voluntary release our control on the processor. Get all stack traces. It will return the stack traces of all the threads. Basically, when we call get a stack trace on where it is, get a stack trace, yes, here. When we call a get a stack trace on a single thread, we get an array of stack traces of that thread only. In this part, get all stack traces provides us with the a thread and its all stack map of thread and all the stack trace elements. So now coming to the point that if you look at this thread, it is not doing anything different than a runnable interface, and runnable interface has only one method, that is run. So question is, why we are using this runnable, why we are extending this thread class? Why not just do it with runnable interface? So thing is, if we want to do something useful or something different with our class, like we want to keep track of total number of threads that was created using this thread class. I think I will have to import this class. And we can also provide our all constructors to limit the usage, that only this constructor this is the constructor that can only be used to create these what is called threads. For example, there are many constructors that thread class provides, like we have no argument, the one that only takes a runnable target, the one takes a runnable target and a name, one that only takes a name. So I'm going to override to provide only this constructor in my thread class. So what I'm going to do, public, sorry, so I'm going to call the constructor of the parent class and pass values to it, and I won't have to do anything. And I'm going to total thread count is get and increment, or increment and get. Okay, just get an increment. So I'm showing why we need to extend a thread to provide extra feature that we cannot provide in a runnable. So if we want to keep track of the total number of threads that has been created till now, or we want to do some logging work, like we want to log some information about the thread that we are running, then we can use this. Then we need to extend the thread. This is the only way we can provide these features. And go back to thread class. Like here I'm going to update the and remove this. So you saw what I did by over extending the thread class, that we can keep track of the total number of threads that we are running, and we each a single thread is going to have a unique name of its own. Put in bracket. So you saw what we did. We modified the name of the thread. So we can see what going to happen. So this is the reason we need to extend a thread to provide any extra features, like we can we can generate new name, and we can do logging of these threads and other stuff that we want to do. So going back here, now this we don't have any no argument constructor, so we are going to delete all the code. My thread going to take a runnable, and we are going to do atomic integer. And we provide the name my thread. And we are going to run all of them. Can we make any more changes here? Print the name of this thread. 7 threads, 5, 6, 7. Now we are going to compile all of those and we are going to run. Okay, in get an increment, cannot file symbol, super. Okay, so there is some hole in my knowledge. So I'm going to print the oh, I think I can access this. Make it static. Okay, the name has a private access in thread. So I knew this, but I wanted to see am I able to access it or not. All done, run the thread test. You saw this is something that we cannot do in a runnable. We cannot modify the name of a thread during creation, not during creation, yes, during the object initialization, like this. So this is the reason we need to extend a thread rather than implementing a runnable. If we only want to execute a piece of code, a sequence of codes, instructions, then runnable will do the work. But we want something custom that we want something like this. We want to have the custom name of different threads. We want the thread class to be used in a thread factory where multiple threads are going to be created, and we need to have a way to identify them in a thread logs, to identify that these logs belong to different threads, and this logs belong to different threads. We do it by providing different name for different threads, like this: thread number 3, thread number 5, thread number 0, thread number 1, like this. This is the reason we need to what is called this is the reason that we need to extend a thread. But you missed one point. What this class should have done, that it should have print 0 1 print 0 my thread, print 1 my thread, like this. But it is running this function. Why? Because we have overridden the run method, and because of that, this runnable that we are passing to the super class cannot be executed. To work on that, we need to comment this out and this out. only my thread was changed, so I'm going to only compile that class and run our thread test. So you saw the difference earlier, that because we had overridden the run method, we were not able to execute the run object run object that we are providing here. Instead, we were running this run method, the overridden one. After I removed that, we were able to execute this runnable object that we are providing. My thread is the name of the class, so I can do one more thing. I need to learn editing properly. This is wrong. What? Undo all this. And we're going to add then print the name of this classes, name of the threads. As we have only modified our thread test class, we will be compiling only that class and then we are going to run it. No issue, great. So now we have our name printed with the count that we wanted. So this is why, this is the reason you extend a thread. This is the reason you don't use a runnable. You use a runnable when you only want to execute some instructions, and we extend the thread. We want to provide a lot of other things, lot of different things that we want. So I think is there anything that I'm not covered? I haven't covered. This is a thread group that we pass to signify that these threads belong to these groups, nothing else. So I have covered all the useful methods and on creating a thread. A daemon thread is the one that runs in the background, and when JVM shuts down, it abandons it. So whenever something shuts down, there are hooks or finally blocks or finally blocks that needs to be executed. But in the daemon case, if JVM is shutting down, it does nothing. It just abandons them and does not execute any of its final instructions, or any of its instruction that is used to clean any resources and memory resources. So you should not do anything in the daemon thread that needs any resources. For example, in the OBS, here you see they are updating a time. So this is basically I don't think this is opening any file or consuming any resource that needs to be that will cause any memory leak if this OBS abandons this daemon thread. So this is what happens if a thread is daemon. I think I haven't covered this interrupt, so I'm going to cover it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put override this run method and try. I'm going to print that I have been interrupted. From my sleep. And over here I'm going to make this thread sleep. 2 seconds, so that it can give us enough time to interrupt it. I'm going to delete all of this except thread 1. Thread 1 will start and go to sleep, and I will call thread1 dot interrupt to interrupt it. I'm going to add one more check, that if then print this. So what happens if any exception happens? So sorry, I'm going to remove this one. So any exception happens, these are just two simple instructions. So only the interrupted exception is going to occur. But in the case of multiple exception, we can use this method to check that our thread was interrupted or not. Many times there are Java functions where your thread can be interrupted, and it can still keep executing, and it's your job. It's up to you what to do with the interrupt status. I'm going to interrupt it, and this print statement should be displayed on the console. Unclose the string literal, true. Okay, thread test run. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Okay, is interrupted. Nothing happened again. So there are chances that I am missing something, or I have been interrupted from my sleep. So I think my concept is not clear with this function, why it is not working. But you can see, because I know interrupt is getting generated. Interrupted exception. You can see that I caught the interrupt exception, printed this statement, and I have that print statement that I have been interrupted from my sleep, and interrupted exception is occurring. That because of is occurring, the proof is that it is caught by this interrupted exception catch block for interrupted exception. So what's up with this method? Why it is not working? Hmm. So you can see the and the interrupt value is coming as false. So I think after the exception was caught, the interrupt status was cleared. This can be the only reason. Uh, so catching the exception clears the interrupt status. Okay. So all the coding session of today is done. I have covered all the methods that are important and it is used. These methods are used sometimes, mostly not directly by us. Thread group is something that we can provide ourselves by creating a thread object and putting the name and passing a name to it, and we can pass that thread group object to constructor that takes a thread group class instance. So it is done. So how am I going to get the interrupt status of this thread? Only way is that I don't catch the exception. I let it move upwards. That is the one way to do it. There I can test it. So I learned one thing, that catching an exception clears the interrupt status. So we are done for today, and see you in live coding next time. Next time I will be covering I will cover the runnable and callable interfaces. Okay, bye till now, till then.